Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. As always, I hope you are doing well. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to get a few updates out of the way. Firstly, I have officially started putting together my online 300-hour yoga teacher training program for you. And so far, I am so excited at how this is shaping up. I'm creating this as a training that I would have wanted when I was a student looking to deepen my yoga skills and my not only yoga skills, but also my teaching skill set. So I'm very, very excited to tell you that this is coming together. And I'm so excited about it, but it's too soon to share more about it just yet. What I have done is I have opened an interest list or a wait list on my website. And if you are looking to do the 300-hour online program, then go ahead and sign up for that waitlist. The link to that waitlist is in the show notes. It's also on my Instagram bio, and you can get to know more about the training. I will be sending the details of the training, the format of it, all of it to this list. Okay. Sometimes things on Instagram get noisy and get lost. So make sure you are on that list, and it's going to have all the details in the weeks and months ahead. The training will begin next year. So you do have some time, but get on the wait list because I will also be polling topics and I'll be getting your input on some. And a part of this training is crowdsourced and it's sourced from you. So just make sure you are on that wait list. My second update is I'm offering a free sequencing masterclass on November 22nd. And the way to sign up for this masterclass is to be on my email list. So don't get confused between the two. One is the 300-hour waitlist, and then there is my monthly newsletter that goes out on the 1st or 2nd of every month. The link to sign up for this sequencing workshop is only for my newsletter subscribers. And the next one is going out, I believe, on October 1st or October 2nd of this coming month. So make sure you get signed up. The link for that is also in the show notes and in my Instagram bio. And now let's get on with today's show. Hi everyone, I'm Arundhati and you've just tuned in to the Let's Talk Yoga podcast, your ultimate online destination for learning about yoga. Whether you're a seasoned yoga teacher or a curious yoga student, there's something for you here. Let this podcast be your virtual yoga school. We offer insights, inspiration, and loads of nerdy exploration of yoga along the way. But first, who am I? I'm an Indian immigrant yoga teacher living in America for the past decade. I have my own yoga school here in Seattle, and I'm also a Bollywood choreographer, and I've nurtured a thriving yoga community at my studio, as well as a global yoga audience through my courses and this podcast. Through this podcast, I intend to create a space for you, the yoga student and yoga teacher, to learn about yoga in depth. Think of this as your online yoga school, free teacher training coming to you every week. So grab your cup of chai and let's jump in. I recently posted a reel on Instagram sharing a 10-point cheat list for yoga teachers. And I casually asked there if I should make this a blog or a podcast so you could use it more in depth. And so many of you asked me to make it a podcast. So here it is. On the show today, we're looking at 10 things. Think of it as a cheat list for yoga teachers. There is so much emphasis and noise and focus in the yoga world about yoga sequences and yoga sequencing. But I think the modern yoga industry has missed something fundamental. There is this very crucial, very important step before sequencing. I don't think we get to spend enough time here. And when I look back at my career of 12 years of teaching, and even my own personal and professional growth as a yoga teacher, as a yoga student, as a yoga business owner, it directly ties back with what I'm going to share with you today. I have this 10-point cheat list that I think is non-negotiable for anyone teaching modern day asana classes. If you teach yoga in some capacity in a group class setting, then this episode is for you. The more time, energy, and effort you spend on mastering the 10 things in this cheat list, you will ace your ability to sequence and class plan and be a teacher that can meet diverse needs in a studio. So what is this cheat list that I'm referring to? It's 10 fundamental things that every yoga teacher needs to know about every yoga pose you do or teach. Now, it may sound like a lot, but honestly, it's not. I learned half of this framework from my yoga teacher, Bharat Shetty, in Mysore. Then, over the years, as I began teaching at my studio, I started to add to this framework. And what I share today is a combination of what I have learned from my teacher and my own additions to it. It's important for me to call out my teacher's influence and impact before we dive into today's episode. So I want you to treat this podcast episode as a virtual masterclass or workshop. So go grab that pen and paper, open that book, or open your notes app, and just make sure you make this cheat list for yourself. So you can literally stick it on your mat or have it near you when you are building your class plan or practicing. I want you to take it seriously. I want you to take it sincerely. And this will help you move the needle, especially if you are a new yoga teacher and you're looking to build confidence and clarity. So let's begin. Number 1 on my cheat list is the name of the pose. The name of the pose is the identity of the pose. Now, you may not know this, but back in the day, before the time of yoga classes and instructions, the Sanskrit name of the pose was the instruction and the description itself. For example, Utita Hasta Pada Angushtasana was not only the name of the pose, but was also the instruction of how to do the pose. Okay, in English, Utita Hasta Pada Angushtasana is a standing balance pose. It's called raised hand to big toe pose. Today, the system of teaching poses has evolved, has changed. But as a yoga teacher, you need to know both the Sanskrit name and the English name of the pose. This is one of the smallest ways you can connect and give back to the source culture that yoga is from. I also think it shows the dedication, time, effort, and discipline of a yoga teacher towards yoga. If a yoga teacher I meet doesn't have the patience or interest to learn the poses, for me, that's a red flag. It's a teacher I wouldn't hire or necessarily practice with. So if you follow the podcast regularly, I dropped a pronunciation guide about 3 weeks ago on the show. Okay, so if you need a little bit of help in learning these poses, take your time and go listen to that podcast. It gives you a lot of context. But one of the things that I want you to remember is that knowing the names of the poses will add layers to your classes, and you get to build on this. And you can even build on the stories behind these poses. And that's an episode I'll make for you some other time. But number 1 on my list is knowing the name of the pose, both in Sanskrit and English. And I don't mean you have to know all of it right away, but at least I would like to see yoga teachers making a sincere effort and attempt towards this. Number 2 on my list is know the benefits of the pose. This may seem like an obvious one to you, but it's very significant. You should know what each and every pose does for the practitioner. What does it strengthen? What does it stretch? What does it enhance? And what does it decompress? So if a student walks up to you and says, "Hey, my knee hurts," you should be able to build a sequence on knowing what will strengthen the knee as well as stretch the muscles out around the knee. Or if a student comes and says that they have to improve their cardiovascular ability, you should be able to quickly make a list of 10, 15 poses in literally under 2 minutes and then spend time refining that plan. Now, if you are a newer teacher, this may take you a little longer, but if you are an experienced teacher, this should come to you a little more naturally. So take some time and really examine how well you know the benefits of the pose, okay? Because this will help you build real world sequences and offer options to people as needed. There are plenty of resources online to learn the benefits of every pose. You should know it not as theory, but more in practice, okay? Number 3 on my list is contraindications. This is who should avoid a pose or do it in a lesser degree. Okay? There will come a time in our yoga classes where we will need to adapt a pose. And knowing the contraindications will help build trust with your students. It will help you think a little bit on your feet. And knowing when a student should avoid the pose is just as important as knowing when a student should do the pose. Again, there are plenty of resources and material available for this online. Ideally, these are things you should have been taught very clearly in your 200-hour yoga teacher training. But for some reason, if this wasn't the case, there's plenty of resources online. Up next, number 4 on my list is adaptations of poses. This goes hand in hand with the previous one. Once you know someone needs to avoid something or needs to address it in a different capacity, you as the yoga teacher in the room should be able to work out a good adaptation. Personally, I don't think adaptations are something you learn after you graduate from a 200-hour and then you notice that, wait a minute, my students can't do what I'm asking them to do. And then in reverse, go and learn how to adapt the pose. For me personally, this is non-negotiable. You learn a yoga pose, you learn how to adapt it. For example, if someone can't do Warrior 2 because they have recently healed a fractured ankle, I should be able to give them 2 or 3 adaptable options on the spot. That will help them still get the benefits of a Warrior 2 or bring them as close to a Warrior 2 as possible. And that's just one example. I could give you 10 more. But know that in modern Western yoga, adaptation is treated as something you learn later and something you learn only if you need to or if you have the interest to. I think that every yoga teacher should be able to know some degree of adaptations. Okay, because we change, our bodies change, our students' bodies change, and there are things that happen in someone's life where for at least a season, they will need adaptations. So take a handful of poses, sit down and experiment with your own practice, your own body, and see if this is something you can build an understanding for. If not, there are always trainings that you could go to. Resources, actually, you don't even need to go to trainings. There are plenty of free resources online that you can learn from. And then if you still need help, you go to trainings and courses for these things. Okay, but know that adaptations is a necessary skill for every asana teacher, at least according to me, in my humble opinion. Number 5 on this cheat list is how to use props skillfully. Now, unless you call yourself a specific vinyasa flow teacher working solely with able bodies that will never need a prop, and I say that with utmost respect, then you're okay. But if you are a yoga teacher in some capacity at a gym, at a studio, and you have students with different needs and abilities, and you are considering aging as a significant part of yoga practice, then you need to know how to use props in some capacity. To me, knowing the basic use of props is a non-negotiable. Okay? You should know how to use a block, when to use it, what is the role of a strap in practice, when do you use blankets, when do you use bolsters, when do you use some other specialized props like chairs and walls and tables and windowsills. To me, it's the bare minimum of learning how to use props. This will build confidence, will help you bring more variety to your classes. You get to make your classes more fun and engaging. So remember that props are a student's best friend in practice. They enhance poses. The most important thing that we miss sometimes is they remove the exertion that happens in poses for students, and it makes the execution smoother. So the end result is that your practitioner will have a better, more effortless experience. So remember to use props to not just make poses adaptable, but to enhance them, to challenge a student's ability and curiosity and body awareness. Now, if you don't know how to use props like this in your own practice, before you teach it, you should be able to use it in your own practice. If you don't know how to do this, then practice with teachers who do know how to do it. For example, I offer all my classes on live stream. Right? Come spend 3 months in our studio in our online classes, and you'll walk away with at least some ideas of how to use props in a fun, engaging, and efficient way. Now, before I move on to the second half of my checklist, have you shared this podcast with a yoga friend? And if you don't have yoga friends, then consider sharing this in any capacity on social. Free content like this needs to be in the hands of more yoga teachers. And I personally spend hours curating this content for you. And there are plenty of other things I could be doing. For example, today is Friday, my day off in a busy yoga teacher training season. But here I am sitting and recording this podcast for you because this for me is my life's mission. right? This is my legacy. I am leaving this for you so you can offer more richer, better yoga and feel really connected to your own practice. So anyway, all I'm trying to say is make sure you share this resource with at least one yoga friend, and it will mean so much to us and it will help us continue to put out this resource on repeat. Up next, number 6 on this checklist is know the breathing pattern for every pose. I have explained how to breathe in poses many times before on this podcast, on my blog, on Instagram. So I'm not going to go into it here. Okay. But I just want to say our job as yoga teachers is not to simply say inhale and exhale as robots. Okay. It is to engage the student with their breath in a pose and to do it in different ways, in different shapes, and in different capacities. If you are unfamiliar with this, know that it's something I go into in my Pranayama Yoga Teacher Training, which is offered online. In a couple of weeks, I will be dropping the dates for 2025, and we get really nerdy about the breath in that. Okay, the details will be on the website in a couple of weeks, and I will also update the podcast once those details are live. But breathing is such a fantastic way to take the student from the physical practice to the energetic practice of a pose. So don't take it lightly. There's so much more to the breath than saying inhale and exhale. I've done a bunch of breath related, pranayama related podcasts on this show. So make sure you look back through our archives, just hit pranayama in the search window and you should see so many pop up. Number 7 is what is the nature of the pose? You need to know if a pose is heating, cooling, or neutral. Every pose has this inner nature or quality that it holds. Some poses are naturally heating, while some poses are more cooling. And knowing this will help you curate a better experience for the student. Especially when it comes to sequencing, you can add layers and layers of depth and complexity, and the student will walk away with their nervous system feeling completely rejuvenated. So make sure you notice whether poses are heating, cooling, or neutralizing. Again, there is a specific approach to this. I've discussed it in the podcast before, so I'm not going to go into it here on this cheat list, but know that it's a part of my Pranayama Yoga Teacher Training as well. I noticed that it's something that is a little lost in Western yoga trainings, where we don't discuss the quality of a pose. It is central to sequencing. So anyway, the nature of the pose is number 7. Number 8 on my cheat list is what level is the pose? Okay. It really helps to group your poses into levels. For example, beginner friendly, advanced beginner, intermediate. You can even have level 1, 2, and 3. I like to make my practitioners grow from being a beginner to building mastery over their body, breath, and mindfulness and move them further up into the journey of yoga. I know sometimes people say numbers are not a great way to organize classes and grouping classes. I disagree. I think for my brain, organizing it in a certain way really helps. And I can do really targeted, effective sequencing and grow my students over the time. That's how I've grown Aham Yoga. Next Friday, a week from today, will be 11 years of running my own yoga studio. And I moved to America with 0 students and 0 skills of how to run anything, as in a business. So it was this ability to sequence that helped me grow my studio from 0 students to thousands of students over the years. So I had to categorize it and add structure to their practice. So to me, levels help. And I think as a smart yoga teacher, being able to group practices will make you teach even all level classes better. Again, come to my sequencing masterclass. We'll get into a question answer round there as well. And these are some of the things we can discuss if you're interested in digging a little deeper. Number 9 on my cheat list is, does the pose need a warm-up? Once you recognize the level of a pose, you can decide whether it needs a few poses to warm up or not. Okay. And again, this will add layers of depth to your sequencing capability. Number 10, and the final one on my checklist is, does your sequence need counter poses? There are a few counter principles. There are not many, but there are a few counter principles for sequencing. Again, I'm not sure what background of training you have come from, but this should be covered in your 200 or 300-hour yoga teacher trainings. For some reason, if they are not covered yet, then we'll touch upon it in my sequencing masterclass. Just remind me if I do not bring this up in the sequencing masterclass. But a counter principle is needed every now and then in asana sequence. Okay, so that's my 10-point checklist or cheat list. I want you to use it and sit with it. Okay, make notes, go back to it. Don't just think, oh, I know this, and skip it. I want you to be able to know all of these 10 points like it's second nature to you. Okay, because if you know this, like I say in my studio, in your bones, then your ability to sequence and be masterful in creating class plans that move the needle for the student is enhanced. Okay, so don't take this episode lightly, take it sincerely. I don't want you to be serious about it, just be sincere about it. Okay, print this if you need to. Once you've written it down, stick it somewhere where you'll see it, and talk to yourself. Like, take a pause and go through the 10 points. Take another pause, go through the 10 points, and build on this. So the more you do this, the better your sequencing will get. So that's all I have for you today. I will be back here next week with a very special guest. She's one of my most favorite yoga teachers, and I cannot wait to share that episode with you next week. Until then, please remember to rate and review the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. Get on the 300-hour waitlist, sign up for the free sequencing masterclass, and keep an eye out for all other updates coming your way. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.